I'm going to attempt to build a zoo including 28 different animals, meaning 28 unique enclosures, with some being much harder to build than others. This video took me way over a month and a half to make, so if you end up enjoying, please consider subscribing. Anyway, let's get straight into this. So, the very first thing we need to do is find somewhere we're going to build the zoo. And yep, this looks like a good enough spot. Now that that's out of the way, the first animal we're going to add to the zoo is the cow. Alright, okay, so here we go. Here's the cow. Let's get one, and that's one cow, and now we just have to find another one. Why are they all gathering here? What's happening? Is it a party? Hi guys, do you like my cow? Pause. I might know why they're having a party. It's because they use Opera GX and you don't. Imagine this was a boring browser. They wouldn't be having a party, but because they have Opera GX, they are. Opera GX is on a mission to get people to break up with boring browsers and have fun whilst doing it. The message is simple. Opera GX is not for everyone, but if you game, it's time to stop browsing like a lame and get with a real one. Opera GX has an insane amount of customization features. With GX mods, you can flip your entire browser 180 degrees with just one click and change pretty much anything you want, like having customizable wallpapers and colors that make your tabs look amazing, custom background music, browser sounds that activate when opening and closing tabs, my personal favorite feature. It even has shaders that give your websites just a little bit of extra detail. Oh, and you can't forget backgrounds for your Discord on the sidebar. It even has a super easy way to import all of your data from a previous browser, such as your history, cookies, and bookmarks. Do you have lags, FPS drops? Well, not anymore. GX Control is a solution. Opera GX has a built-in CPU and RAM limiter that you can easily turn on and off, enhancing the performance of your PC when gaming with your browser open to get rid of lag. Perfect for when you want to keep several tabs open but you don't want your browser to hurt performance. Just look at the difference. Make sure to download Opera GX at the top of the description or the pinned comment. Thank you very much to Opera GX for sponsoring the video. Now let's get straight back into it. I didn't realize, but when I chose this spot, it looked quite nice because it's really flat. But what I didn't realize is it included a massive ravine halfway down the middle of it. You're not a cow. So I think I'm going to clear up all the trees that you can see around the sides of our zoo area and do a slight bit of terraforming with my trusty shovel, and then once that's done we can finally figure out the layout of the zoo. Oh, and look at that, there's another ravine. And there we go, we are completely treeless? We're completely treeless. Now that all of the unwanted trees were gone around the area, I decided that to make some more space I should completely get rid of the village. No more partying for you. And then after forcing tens of villagers to become homeless, and a slight bit of terraforming, the area was completely ready, meaning it's now finally time to gather some resources for the first enclosure. The block palette for the cows will be something on the lines of stones, bricks, grass, oak wood, and wheat, and obviously a few other blocks. So let's go get them. For the stone, I got quite a lot when I was terraforming all of this land out. So for some of it, I'm smelting up in the furnaces, but that's definitely not going to be enough. So I grabbed my Silk Touch pickaxe and collected a bunch more stone. I also went to go collect a bunch of wheat and realized I definitely didn't need any more wood for the minute from destroying that village. After this, I headed back to see what I had to work with. And now let's give it a little outline just to see how big it will be. Yeah, this looks quite nice. I'm just going to add a little hill on one of the sides to give it a bit more structure, like this. So my idea for the cow enclosure is that we have one hill over here with some water in a few gaps and then wheat all over the hill. Just like that. That's one of the hills done. I think I'm going to do that one more time on the other side with wheat once again, and then that'll be the two hills done. After I built both of the hills, I started working on the finer details, such as some trees, buttons to act as sticks on the floor, trapdoors to keep the cows from falling into the water, some leftover podzol and gravel for a nice floor effect, and finally a path going straight through the middle. To keep the cows from escaping, I made this nice oak and stone brick slab fence, and with that being said, we can now tick the cow off the list, leaving only 27 enclosures left to build. This is going to take forever. Now the next animal on the list is a special one. It's the camel. I actually did get a camel in my last series, but it just ran away from me, so hopefully we can do a better job at keeping it more secure. So I headed straight to the nearest desert that I knew of in order to hunt down a camel. And with the luck on my side, I managed to find one pretty fast. I then slapped a saddle on it and started making my way back to the zoo. On the way back from the zoo, I quickly dropped off the camel and gathered a few more materials, such as a load of sand, some more stone, and even some blocks from the new cherry blossom biome. So once again, the first thing I'm going to do is make a nice and big layout for the camels. Kind of on the lines of this. Now here comes the fun part. For the floor of this enclosure, I wanted it to be a mix of 3 blocks. Sand being the main block, sandstone for the more built up areas, and then grass for the tree section. Starting with the sand, I replaced all of the grass, just leaving one little area to make a nice lagoon. Straight after this, I then went into creating a little green area where I'll be creating a mini cherry blossom biome. Once the dirt had fully turned into grass, I placed a load of pink petals and 2 cherry saplings. Moving on to the desert section, I made a small desert temple with some cactus around it, filled up the lagoon with water and placed some sugarcane around the sides, and finished it off with a few minor details, leaving this to be the final design. Next is the goats, a fairly new animal located in the deep depths of the mountains. Okay. Just like these two. I will usually try and attempt to get at least 2 of each animal, but I cannot make any promises. The first thing that I started with is the floor, simply adding some podzol and some path blocks. With the floor being partially done, I started working on the 2 mini mountains that I would have within the enclosure, made mostly out of stone and some cobblestone with a little bit of snow for some more detail. After this, I added 1 huge tree, 2 man-made boulders, and even 2 man-made spruce trees. After building the 2 trees, I moved on to building the second taller mountain. Once again, built out of the same blocks as last time, I placed some leaves and some logs to act as fallen trees, and things slowly started to come together. With the big tree, I decided to add some ladders, so if we ever wanted to have a lookout over the entire zoo when it's fully done, we can. With the main details being complete, I started placing the fence. Once I completed it, I remember that because goats can just jump over 10 blocks, the fence wouldn't be tall enough, and I didn't really want to have a Great Wall of China sized wall blocking us from seeing the goats, so to improvise, I kept them on the lead. So now we've successfully completed 3 enclosures, and I've just realized something. From Minecraft being Minecraft, mobs without a name tag will just despawn, meaning somehow we're gonna have to find 28 name tags, and that might take a few minutes. Just a few. So here goes nothing. Whew, that should definitely be enough for now. We've got about 16 in total. I had some in my base's chests from old expeditions, and for the rest I painfully located spawners to loot their chests. Now let's get back to the building. And the next animal on the list is the frog. Just like all of the others, I'm going to have to search for the biome where I can find the frog, and that's the mangrove. So I crafted up a few more firework rockets, got a little bit more food, and headed out on a hunt for a mangrove biome. And here we go. Oh, this is one. There he is. And there's the other one. There we go. We also have to get some resources. So let's get some nice mangrove blocks. That should be enough, but now we just have to get home, and I don't remember the way back. Now that we're all home and safe, let's start working on the construction of the frog enclosure. Why do I feel like I've said the word enclosure so many times? And for this enclosure, oh my god. We're going to kind of just replicate a nice looking mangrove biome, but obviously with a lot more detail. So for this enclosure, I started by simply replacing all but some of the floor with mud blocks, whilst also terraforming the majority of the land out to make it look more realistic. After I had finished with the floor, for now I moved on to making the small pond that I had planned to build. The small pond would have a small mud island in the middle, even including a custom mangrove tree. Then I started to place the other few blocks that we had gathered, such as some leaves around the sides, some vines on the trees and bushes, and even some mangrove roots. Finishing it off, I placed down the usual fence with slabs, and then put the frogs inside their new home. You know what, I'm quite happy with this one. It's very unique, and it looks quite nice. I tried to add the small island in the middle as best as I could, and I think I did that fairly well. Time to move on to the next animal, the polar bears. So obviously the first thing I need to do is find 2 polar bears. So that's the first one, and that's the second one. Just gonna chuck them down here for now. Oh, and yeah, I've already figured out the outline for this one, and it's gonna be pretty big. I also forgot to say, but I put all of the name tags that we needed to on the animals, so that's good. Finally, I'm going to quickly repair some of my tools, as they're starting to get a little bit low. Right, now let's get going. Because of this enclosure being in snow, I'm thinking of building an igloo on this side. And then on this side, I'm going to build an ice lake. So to start off, on the igloo side, I'm going to build a small snowy mountain, just giving it a little bit of detail with stone and cobblestone. That looks quite nice. Now let's see if I can build an igloo. No, I can't. Although, it's quite cool because you can go inside it, and it doesn't look too bad. I then wanted to save my eyes from pain from the igloo, so I decided to work on the other side. I added the ice lake made with some packed ice, placed a few more bits of snow around the igloo to try and save it, and it didn't really work. Moving on to the middle section, I added a spruce tree, a fireplace, some very small ice spikes, some bushes, and as per usual I did a few minor details with some stone buttons, some fish on the ice acting as food for the polar bears, and then a slight bit of decor inside the igloo, giving us a final product of this. This next one is going to be a little bit different. To make sure this video isn't insanely long, this next enclosure will cover the next 3 animals. The tropical fish, the ocelot, and the turtle. And I also have a very nice and quite different idea for this one. It might be my favorite one so far. Right, so somewhere in this water we should find everything that we need. And there we go. That should do for now. Although now we have to take the turtles all the way back. And we're pretty far away. Wow, that took a while. That took way longer than expected. But at least finally we have 2 turtles safe at our base. Just so they don't despawn, let's just do this. Finally, we can now move on to the axolotls, and thankfully they're pretty much everywhere. Just like these ones. So for this one, the block palette is going to be slightly different, mainly made just out of some spruce blocks, lots and lots of glass, and then many different blocks for the 3 mini tanks that we're going to build. Trust me, that'll make a lot more sense soon. I did get some inspiration from someone called System Z, so make sure you check them out. Anyway, let's get straight into building this. To get started, I placed down a small outline just to check that the animals would have enough space. Although for the turtles, I think anything would be an upgrade. Once I had all of that sorted, I then moved on to sectioning the 3 quarters off from each other, and it actually looked quite nice. I then spent quite a while decorating all of the 3 tanks with their separate block palettes, until eventually they were fully furnished and finished. Now meaning the last thing to do is just put the animals inside their new home, starting with the tropical fish. There we go. Now the axolotls. And finally the turtles. And there we go. This is definitely by far my favorite one yet. Moving on, it's the bees. You don't tend to see many bees at the zoo, but this is Minecraft, so you do now. The blocks I'm going to use is pretty much everything that I can find related to bees. So flowers. And yeah, that's about it. And here we are, I've managed to find 2 bees. Now just to get them safely back to our base. I must say, even just from walking around the zoo, it's starting to look very nice. I can't even imagine what it'll look like when it's fully completed. I then made an area to place the bees temporarily, and then I started to build. Inspired by SpongeBob, I decided to build something that looks like Sandy's house. Made mostly out of glass with some wood outlining it. For the inside, I had 1 big tree in the middle, a few honey boxes, and lots of different flowers. Now obviously, let's just name tag them. Enjoy your new home. Next, I want to start working on a very unique enclosure. I'm going to start working on the Hogland enclosure, but first we're going to need some hoglins. Wait, why on earth is a sheep here? Are you okay? What? Okay, so it's time to find a crimson forest, and I haven't found one yet. Alright, no sight of one yet. Ow. There we go, and finally, we have found a crimson forest. It is quite far away from my nether portal, so that's going to be fun. Please. No. No, I just want you for my zoo. I'll build you a nice new home. Please, will you not attack me? No, come on. There you go. This is going good so far. We're getting there. I'm not too sure on where my portal is, so that's not great. Oh no, that's not very good. Oh my god. After losing the Hogland in the lava, I decided just to make a path all the way back to the portal instead, which was probably a much smarter idea. Once the path was fully done, I went back into the Crimson Forest, found another piglet, and brought him back. Right, now you stay right here. You do not want to end up like your other sibling. Let's just grab the last one. And there we go. That's 2 hoglins. Let's get building. Once I placed down the cobblestone outline, I filled in all the blocks with netherrack. Then I used some bone meal to spread some crimson nylium around, leaving some crimson fungus that I bone mealed to turn into trees. And I even got this weirdly large one that I thought I would keep anyway. After all of this, I added a glassed off lava area and then put a nice looking fence all the way around the outside. Finally, it's now time to put the 2 big guys inside. Just come up here, and there we go. So, I want to complete the rest of the aquatic animals, meaning the dolphins, squids, and glow squids. Although, I must say these ones will definitely be the most annoying to bring back. Let's make 3 little holes to put the animals in when we get them. Now let's go hunt them down. That's the 2 dolphins found. Now just to incredibly slowly walk back with them. There we go. Next is the squids. That's them all safe. And finally, the glow squids. So for the dolphin enclosure, I started by flattening a brand new area where I mined out and traced an outline. After filling it all in with sand and water, I used a load of blocks that I gathered from the warm sea, like all sorts of coral, some seagrass, and some sea pickles. Once the whole enclosure was built, I had the super fun job of putting the dolphins inside. Oh, please just come up. But after I completed that, it looked amazing. For the squids and glow squids, I decided to have them both in with each other, leaving us with more space around the zoo for other animals, and it looked quite cool. On one side, I recreated a nice cave that we can walk inside for the glow squid, with some nice eating areas. As for the outside, I transformed the cave into a small hill, and made a pretty deep but mini lake for the squids to roam around in, including some sand, gravel, seagrass, and sugarcane. Just look at them swimming. That's all the aquatic animals fully done, and we're now going to move on to the mushroom. I started by getting a few more furworks and finding a mushroom island. Obviously, they're not the easiest thing to find, but after quite some time I had found one. I put the mushroom in a boat and bring it back to the zoo. For the enclosure, I pretty much just wanted to rebuild the mushroom's habitat, so I outlined an area, built a small island in the middle made out of the same blocks as the mushroom island, put some water all the way around the sides. I even bone mealed one of the mushrooms to make one big mushroom in the middle, and did a little bit of extra detail here and there. I also decided to keep the mushroom on a lead, just in case it fancied a swim. Next is the parrots. For this one, I obviously had to go into the jungle, so I headed straight there and went on the lookout for a parrot. After searching for a while, I just went back to my old base and found one there instead. Once I had brought the parrot all the way back, I started working on the enclosure, and this one was definitely unique. I started by building the layout, just using some wood as the floor, then moving on to the building of the structure, where I used a lot of glass and some stripped wood to create a nice looking building. As for the inside, I made a few small perching areas for the birds made out of lightning rods, changed the floor to a jungle themed floor, and then finished it off with placing some leaves around the side and some flowers. Moving on is the panda. For the panda enclosure, I kept it very simple. From the pandas obviously being from the jungle, I went straight there, found the panda and bring it back. I started by placing a few jungle trees, a few melons and lots of grass. Then I started to place down and grow lots and lots of bamboo to act as a bamboo field. Straight after that, I built a small water source for them with some sugarcane. Then I built a nice looking fence with jungle leaves, stone bricks and slabs. And now it's time to get the pandas. Right now, you two enjoy this. This took me way too long, like really long. Like, please. You're not a panda. Next, we're going to do 3 animals, the pig, the sheep, and the chicken. I started with the pig enclosure, gathering loads of mud blocks, lots of wood, and a few other things. Once I had everything that I would need, I started to place them all down. I made a nice shelter area for them to sleep in, made out of a mix of birch, cobblestone, and oak, replaced a load of the floor with mud because they're pigs and pigs usually love mud, and finally I placed some hay and made a nice fence all the way around the sides. Moving on to the sheep, this one I decided to pretty much just have a nice and big open plains biome field with a few extra little details, like some grass, hay of course, and a cauldron for drinking water. Finally, once again I built a nice fence that was slightly different, built mostly from mossy cobblestone, some slabs, stone and some composters. Welcome to your new home. Now lastly, the chicken enclosure. For this one it was pretty similar to the sheep enclosure, but this time I added a few custom trees, a little bit of water, and a very small house for them to sit in, if they can fit, and then a nice looking fence all the way around the side. Welcome. After spending a long time editing this video, I got tired, so I visited my rabbit in real life, giving me the idea for this next animal to be the rabbit. I started by obviously gathering lots of items and blocks, such as a load more wood as we were running pretty low, lots of carrots, a little bit more hay, then some gravel and water. Once I had everything, I found my 2 lucky rabbits and released them inside their newly made habitat. Now having the rabbit enclosure completed, I decided just to tidy up a little bit of the land around our zoo, as it's not the flattest and we still have a few more animals to complete yet. It's now time to work on the ocelot and cat enclosure. To start with the ocelot enclosure, I headed straight to the jungle, and surprisingly fast found 2 ocelots. I also decided to grab another parrot whilst I was there, as we actually only got one earlier. Once we had made it back, I set the parrot free and put the ocelot somewhere safe, whilst I went on the lookout for some cats. Once again, I found them fairly fast and brought them straight back. The ocelot enclosure obviously has a jungle theme, so just like the pandas, I recreated the jungle with melons, some bamboo, podzol and some other blocks. And as for the cat enclosure, I wasn't very sure on what to build, so I just built a nice and very detailed hilly grassy area, and then a very small replicated village. Finally, I brought the ocelots into the enclosure and name tagged them, and as for the cats, I did the exact same thing. Next up, we're going to do a few nice and easy ones. The mule, the donkey, and the horse. To start off, I went out and collected the 3 animals, and from our zoo being built in a plains biome, I didn't have to travel far. Starting with the horse, I decided to start with the fence, built from all sorts of spruce blocks and some grass, giving us a nice area to work with. For the inside, I made most of the floor a mix of gravel, some sand, lots of hay, some path blocks, some oak planks, and a few other things. Moving on to the donkey enclosure, I decided to have a nice and small shelter area, lots of podzol, some gravel, and then as usual, some hay and a few cauldrons. Finally, it was time for the mules. For this one, once again, I was very stuck on what to build, so I decided to use some birch wood. I built a nice fence all the way around the sides with birch leaves, some birch planks, and then some stone bricks. As for the inside, I just planted a few birch trees, put some hay around, and then obviously a cauldron with water. Throughout the whole video, I've had so many wandering trader llamas, but I actually ended up just killing them for the leads, which explains how I have so many. But this time we actually need one because next is the llama. To start off, I went hunting for a llama, and after not too long, I found one. I absolutely slapped a name tag on it and then brought them all the way back. Once we were all home and safe, I went back out to collect a bunch more blocks, mainly with a savanna theme, like acacia wood, some dead bushes, some more water, sugarcane, and a few other blocks. Once I had enough, I started to build the fence, built out of acacia fences, slabs, blocks, blocks, logs, and leaves. After the fence was fully built, I started working on the details. I built a nice and big wheat farm in the middle, surrounded by a load of path blocks and a few small acacia village houses, a few custom trees, and finally a mini river going through the middle. And finally, the last two animals of the video, the wolf and the fox. To change it up a little bit, I decided to build both of the enclosures first, and then after they were completed, I would go find the animals. So starting with the wolf enclosure, I built a very nice outline from some mossy cobblestone, some stone, some slabs, and some leaves. Moving on to the details, I planted a few tall spruce trees, replaced nearly all of the floor with a mix of gravel, podzol, and some dead bushes. And lastly, I built a nice small pond area and placed 2 cauldrons full of water. Moving on to the fox enclosure, it was pretty similar to the wolf enclosure, except I added some berry bushes, placed a nice campfire and some seating areas in case the foxes wanted to sit around the fire, changed the floor to some path blocks, gravel and podzol, made a small spruce village house, made a well and placed a bell. Now, for the last time in the video, let's go get the animals. Starting with the wolf, I headed straight over to the forest biome where I located 2 wolves. And to save the no name tags that I had left, I just tamed both of the wolves. Then it was time just to slowly walk all the way back until eventually I had both of the wolves safe. Now meaning the actual final animal is the fox. I grabbed my last few fireworks and headed straight towards the taiga biome, where after literally 1 second of being there, I found my 2 foxes. Once I had them all on the lead, I once again slowly walked all the way back, until eventually we had the foxes safe in their enclosure. And there we go, after 28 completely unique enclosures and many hours of playtime, it looks like the zoo is fully complete. This video has been incredibly fun to make and I super hope you enjoyed it. And of course, if you did, please smash the subscribe and comment what your favorite enclosure was. See you soon.